Hello everyone, I'm your host VorksBox, and welcome to Balatro, the indie roguelike poker game developed by LocalThunk. Its popularity has been skyrocketing recently after it was nominated for Game of the Year in 2024, making it the first solo game project to ever be nominated. Because that's right, LocalThunk is a single person, with the only other person who worked on the game being Lewis F., who was contacted on Fiverr to create the soundtrack. So, how'd they do it? What's the secret that made Balatro so popular? Well, I'll tell you right now, there's no single answer. But first impressions can play a big role, and Balatro's tutorial does a lot more than you might initially think. So, come join me as we break down Balatro's 5-minute tutorial and how much of an impact it has on the rest of the game. First thing you'll notice is Balatro's choice to use normal playing cards and basic poker hands. Right off the bat, this makes Balatro a lot more approachable. Before you've even launched the game, if you've played poker or even just messed with a normal deck of playing cards before, you already have an idea of some of the mechanics, like face cards. This choice allows Balatro's tutorial to focus more on the gameplay loop than just the gameplay, which it does, starting the tutorial off by first explaining the goal to the player. Get a score that beats the current blind. Also, notice how the tutorial chooses to not show the tag option to the player, since it's not necessary right now. Balatro then has the player select the small blind, and it shows up on the top left of the UI. Now, they could have just had the score for the player to beat pop up in its own little UI, maybe have the reward amount in a small box next to it, but instead they decide to reuse the same visual elements as the card you selected. So, without knowing anything, and without saying a word, this design choice subtly teaches you something about the blinds. There's this important element of game design called player feedback. There's actually a great clip from the Half-Life 25th anniversary documentary where they talk about this, saying it's the world acknowledging your actions. Gabe giving the example.
If I go up to a wall and shoot it, to me it feels like the wall is ignoring me. I'm getting a narcissistic injury when the world is ignoring me. You have to have this sense of the game acknowledging and responding to the choices and actions and progressions that you've made. Otherwise, it loses any sort of impact.
So it's important that for every player action, there's a reaction, realistically multiple, and it's equally as important for the player to understand their correlation. It's why in a lot of games, solving a puzzle that opens a door will have the camera move to show you the door opening. So, by Balatro simply reusing the title, icon, description, and color scheme, you understand that this new element up here is related to the one you just selected. And this is just one action. I haven't even mentioned the fact that it also provides everything you need to know about the blind on the card itself. After this, Balatro explains that the player needs to earn a minimum chip amount and that playing poker hands is how you earn chips. Then talking about how poker hands have a default chip amount that is multiplied by a default mult amount, highlighting this section here on the UI and having the words chip and mult match the colors on the UI, once again, to help with association. Then, going further down the UI, Balatro does something interesting. It says that your poker hands can be found in the run info area here, as well as other information about your current run. And, opening it, you're given this UI. And told nothing. You know that feeling you get when you accidentally open a panel during a tutorial that you weren't supposed to, and the game just kind of stares at you, like it goes quiet? This panel gives that same feeling. After that, you might assume this is some sort of cheat sheet and close it soon after that, wanting to get back to the tutorial. But this is a clever design the game uses a lot. It presents new information to the player, but it doesn't go into detail, often giving a rough outline. And this accomplishes two goals. Number one is preventing cognitive overload, which is a game design concept where a player can be presented with so much information that it just overwhelms them to the point that they can struggle to process anything. And number two, keeping the player thinking, but we'll go into more detail about that later. After you close this screen, the game then explains how the cards work, telling the player that each card earns some chip and that hovering over them will show you how much. It then goes into the playing and discard options and says that the player can select up to 5 cards to play. And at this point, most people are going to notice the pair. Also, while the player is selecting their cards, the UI will update in real time to show the hand the player is currently selected. Now, what if the player chooses to play more than just these 2 cards? Well, then Balatro does something clever. The game will move the pair upwards, leaving the extra card behind, indicating that it's not in play. And if that's not enough, the game will also animate each valid card earning chips. This, once again, helps the player associate their actions with a result. They understand that only the valid cards of the poker hand actually have an impact on their score. Also notice that this is done without actually directly telling the player. And that's the goal of the tutorial. It's not to teach the player every single thing they need to know about the game, but instead for them to understand the skeletal structure of the game. After that, the tutorial lets you play out this round, which is a great way to let you get comfortable with the controls. It's a really well-balanced tutorial, holding the player through some parts, but still giving them the freedom to think for themselves. And eventually, the player beats the small blind. And with that, we move on to the shop. Now, with this being a new area, the tutorial returns, and the game walks the player step by step through this section, starting off by pointing out the amount of cash you have and where it can be found in the UI. Once again, being incredibly transparent on the very basic elements, all the while highlighting the important elements that the player needs to be paying attention to. Starting off by first making the player buy the Joker and explaining that it provides +4 malt, then pointing out the limited Joker slots, saying that you can only have up to 5 Jokers. But if you've played before, you know that isn't true, since there are negative Jokers that don't count towards the total, allowing you to have more than 5 Jokers. But the tutorial doesn't say this right now, because it doesn't need to. The player doesn't need to understand the true depth of every mechanic the moment they learn about it. The goal of Balatros' tutorial is not to tell you the rules of the game, it's to tell you how you should be thinking about the game. It's putting you into a mindset. Jokers are limited, so plan accordingly. Then it does the same thing it did for the Joker card for the Emperor's Terror card. First, making you buy the card, and then saying that you can only have up to 2 consumables at a time. Again, not true, but the player will think that it is, which also honestly makes discovering that you can change it more exciting. Finding out about first negative Jokers and then about negative item cards is such a fun moment, and that could have easily been robbed from the player if the game decided to tell them about it in the tutorial. This section then wraps up with the tutorial pointing out both the voucher and the booster packs, saying that if you save up enough, you'll be able to get the voucher, which will passively upgrade your run and will be restocked after a boss blind, and that booster packs should be checked out because they're full of goodies, not going into any detail and making the player move on to the next round. And that's all you really need to know. Everything else will just come naturally with the desire to know. Want to know how booster packs work? No need to hold up the game to teach you. Just buy one and find out. And that's the key element. The game teaches you what you need to know, and everything else that you can figure out is left for you to discover. We then move on to the next round where we learn about the tag system and the boss blinds. Again, just covering the basics here. It says that you can skip a blind to gain a tag, and that tags have unique effects, but it doesn't really explain what any of this means. Like, what does it mean to skip a blind? Does it also skip the shop? What are the unique effects? How does this even work fundamentally? Well, that's all left for you to figure out. It then goes over the boss blind, saying that they have unique abilities that need to be planned for, and that beating the boss will raise both the ante and the blind, making the game harder. Again, bare minimum here. Now, I know you might worry. This is so little information. It doesn't even make the player use the tag system. They could walk away confused. Well, let's consider the alternative. Forcing the player to interact with the system they just don't care about right now, resulting in them walking away learning nothing. It's like when schools force you to read a book and you just end up hating it regardless of its quality. But yeah, it does mean the player can walk away not fully understanding certain elements. That's why Balatro designed its systems to be understandable by the simple act of interacting with them, allowing the player to set their own pace. Now, keep in mind, we just went over the shop. The player could be wanting to get back into gameplay again, and by leaving this up to the player, it turns this learning session into a moment of discovery. They aren't just told how it works, they're told that it exists. It's up to them to figure the rest out. So we move on to the next round, and here, Balatro does the best thing it can possibly do. It makes the player use the consumable card. If you've played this game before, you know how consumables work conceptually. So imagine how many players, when given this card, wanted to hold on to it only to use it when they thought it was necessary, treating it more like a temporary bonus than what it actually is, a permanent upgrade. To fix this, the tutorial makes the player use the card and prompts them to select up to 2 cards to effect. And I'm sure at this point you've noticed that exactly 2 cards stick out compared to the rest. These 2 jacks here on the left. So when the player has to select 2 cards to upgrade, they're likely to select these 2. Now, here's the part that I love. The game isn't forcing you to select these two. Hell, it isn't even hinting that you might want to upgrade these two. This decision is fully up to the player, but with this being your first decision, you're not going to be thinking, oh, I should upgrade the lower cards to balance the deck. In fact, you're not going to be thinking at all. You might have no clue how chip and mult even work and how a mult card plays into this whole thing. The game makes you make a complete blind choice here. Upgrade whatever card you want, but you have no idea how it plays into anything. So what are you likely to do? Face card, big card, upgrade big card. But here's what takes it to the next level. Take a look at this. This is the first hand of the next round, the boss blind, with the same jack you upgraded showing up here. Now, the tutorial is a seeded run, meaning all luck-based elements are predetermined, so it will always play out like this. You can even see this in old Let's Plays from back when the game was in beta. Even though most elements have changed, this one rule still applies. In the big blind, the player will upgrade 2 cards. Of the 2 highest value cards on the table, one of them will show up here in the boss blind. And this is to teach you one of the most important rules of the game. The deck is persistent, and all of this is done without saying a single word. You get to discover it. Hey, I want to take a moment here to quickly say thank you to our fantastic members, whose direct support is deeply appreciated and helps make all of this a reality. With a special shout out to our powerful elite supporter, Anime Mangas. Just look at that shipper. And if you're interested in and able to support me, then please consider becoming a member today. Besides helping me, you'll also gain special perks like your name in the video, as well as behind the scenes content and other things you can check out via the join button below. Thank you all so much again, and let's get back to the video. At the core of Balatro is discovery and experimentation. That's why it's so smart to bake it directly into the tutorial, and in a way that feels genuine. Not a, go pick up this rock, oh look, you discovered a coin, but in a way that, yeah, some people might not figure it out immediately, but a majority will, and that's the hook. That's the satisfaction of the game, and that's what keeps you thinking. Also, you probably haven't even noticed it yet, but the tutorial has already ended. No goodbye or anything. Suddenly, you're just playing the game. A smooth transition that leaves you in an active mindset. You aren't just clicking buttons to get the next thing done. No, you're thinking, you're problem solving. I think we've all experienced a tutorial before where by the end of it, you're just on autopilot. In only 5 minutes, Balatro's tutorial manages to convey the necessary information to the player, preventing cognitive overflow, and puts you into the proper mindset. You aren't just told what to do, you have to figure that out yourself. And this is what I meant earlier about keeping the player thinking. It's not just to prevent burnout, it's to fuel your thought process. If you're not taught it, you can learn it. Like, what is everything in the run info section? Or, what are inside those booster packs? Or, what card are you going to upgrade? It keeps you thinking. It keeps you curious, giving you just enough information for you to want more. But that's not all. Balatro also couples this powerful tutorial that keeps you motivated with a trick that takes this to the next level. Let me use this Arcana pack as an example. Take a look at these cards. If you have several hours in this game, you've realistically used these cards a lot. But here's the interesting thing. I imagine a good number of you don't know what all of these tarot cards do despite using them all the time. And here's where Balatro pulls out its special trick, the tooltip system. For every one of these cards, there's a tooltip that explains what it does. In fact, there's a tooltip associated with every single card in Balatro. And here is where we shift into a more player-guided learning experience, where the game doesn't point things out to you directly, and instead, it's up to you to use the tooltip system to understand what the cards do. This tooltip system also means you only ever need to know what is directly in front of you, so you never feel pressured to actually memorize everything. Again, pulling cognitive load off of the player, while also playing a key role in replayability, allowing you to come back to the game after a while and still understand everything. You don't need to know what a tarot card does if you don't interact with it for the whole run. Hell, you don't even need to know what a card does in your inventory until you plan on using it. Now, keep in mind, the tooltip doesn't nullify the player's requirement to think and experiment. The player also needs to learn things naturally by playing the game. Take the glass card, for example. It may take a bit before you encounter one, but if you get the Justice Tarot card, you can turn one card into a glass card. And the tooltip for the glass card is described as a 2x mult that has a 1/4 chance to destroy the card after the scoring is finished. Seeing this for the first time, you might have a few questions, like what does it mean to destroy a glass card? Or what does it mean by after all scoring is finished? It's playing the game and experimenting that gives you those answers. Or maybe a better example might be the steel card with its simple tooltip, 1.5 mult, while this card stays in your hand. You may wonder, what does it mean by stay in your hand? My point is, tooltips, just like the tutorial, are less of a wiki of information and more of a slight hint as to what's possible, leaving it up to the player to experiment with these mechanics and try and understand them on a deeper level. And that becomes even more apparent when it comes to the relationship between cards. Take a standard pack, for example. There's a chance that you can run into a red seal. The tooltip will tell you that it will re-trigger the card one time, but you'll wonder what happens if you pair with another card, like a glass card or a lucky card, steel, or how does it work with jokers like the hanging Chad? This tooltip doesn't really tell you that. It's up to you to figure that out and how they connect to each other. And just like that, you're playing the game, trying to understand how to improve your run, discovering new jokers and experimenting with different combinations, all while improving the ultimate deck. The tutorial might have ended long ago, but you never stopped learning, and that's what makes Balatros tutorial so good. Its goal isn't to teach you, its goal is to get you ready, to provide just enough information to get you by, but keep you wanting more. You have all these questions, and instead of giving you answers, Balatro equips you with the knowledge and the mindset to discover them yourself. Thank you for watching. This has been VorksBox, and I'll see you on the other side.